The other piece of these classes that we've been neglecting until now, and I've been promising to talk about, is self. So let's get into that. As we've noticed, if we go over to looking at one of our classes here, we have the rectangle class, is that every method has self as the first or only parameter. And we also have self and then some variables defined in the init method. So what those do, we can access them as well within methods. So what those do is self is the variable that holds the instance that's being created. It's what we can use to reference attributes and methods, attributes of the instance. So it makes the variables available to methods within that instance, and it tracks those for us. It always, with a few exceptions, which we won't talk about in this course, must be passed in as the first or only parameter of a class method. And technically, we could use any word instead of self, but it's not recommended. If you're coming from Java, for example, you might be familiar with this. It's a similar thing, a similar keyword, and Python just uses self. So when we're speaking Python's language, we need to obey Python's language rules. And just know that self is required. So the first parameter of every method in our class needs to be self, even if it's the only parameter. And then when we are initializing our objects, we say self.name, because that will be the object variable, the name variable associated to the object, equals name, which I didn't really cover this earlier, but that name, that age, that gender, they reference these arguments that are passed in. Whereas this name, this age, this gender reference the actual variables that we can use in our objects. So I hope that explains the self a little bit more. It's kind of a topic that is a little bit confusing as we start out. At least it was for me. So I hope that helps fill in some of the gaps and can help us understand why we have that word thrown in there, which is self. It's just referencing the instance or the object variables, and it's just how the Python language works. So there you go.